Hello and a warm welcome. You're watching an India Today special. In a few days from now, the Modi government completes 2 years in power. Over the next 1 hour, we will take you through the findings of the India Today editorial board, ranking Modi ministers, the stars and the strugglers of Team Modi. I'm joined in the India Today Mediaplex by my colleague and India's finest political journalist, Rajdeep Sardesai. With us also at this time from Bengaluru is our editorial director of publishing, Raj Chingappa. He and his team have worked on putting these ratings together. Also with us on this show is Siddharth Vardarajan. And last but not least, Chandan Mitra. We're trying very hard to get him to speak more as a journalist, not as a BJP MP. He says he's conflicted, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. What I'll do first is take you through the stars of Team Modi. We'll take you through the ministers India Today believes are the star performers, the best performers. And right at the top of the pack is Nitin Gadkari, coming in with 4.5 out of 5. Remember, 5 is the maximum any minister could have scored. India Today believes that Nitin Gadkari is Narendra Modi's top performing minister, the Minister for Transport. He's done a very good job when it comes to finding innovative ways of moving finance, commissioning projects. Amongst the lows, as far as India Today is concerned, is the fact that he yet hasn't been able to hit the target of 30 kilometers per day. Raj Chingappa, to you first. What's the rationale behind picking Nitin Gadkari as one of the top performing ministers of the Modi government?
Well, he certainly heads a key ministry, and his performance as compared to the previous government when they do about 3 kilometers, he's boosted that considerably. He's also very innovative in the way he's gone about giving contracts and others, cut down delay to an extra, considerable extent. And he's a minister that, among the others, seems to have it all there. He knows what he wants to do. He gets it done quickly, cuts through red tape. It's good to have him around.
He's very different. He's a CEO in some senses, Rajdeep. He takes quick decisions, not worried about bureaucratic protocol, and wants to roll things out quickly.
I call him the Sharad Pawar of this government. Very similar.
Will he like that or not like that?
I think he'd like that because they are businessmen politicians. They are political entrepreneurs. So they want to get, as you said, the job done. And I think that's the success of Nitin Gadkari, that he, unlike many other ministers who are constantly looking over their shoulder to see whether they have the Prime Minister's approval or not, Mr. Gadkari
Why not? Why does he not need to look behind his shoulder?
Well, you could argue that he believes that he derives a lot of power from his proximity to the RSS, to Nagpur. But I think more than that, it's just the kind of person he is. Even when he was in Maharashtra, when he was Minister for Roads and Highways, the Mumbai-Pune project, for example, was his brainchild. He went ahead with it. Remember, there have been charges from time to time that he has helped particular developers, particular companies, and there will be this charge against him of cronyism. It does come. It's come against Mr. Pawar also. But nobody can deny that both Mr. Gadkari and Mr. Pawar represent a kind of pragmatic view of politics that many believe is the only way to run a government. You don't go by ideology, but you go by getting the job done. Too many ministers in this government are constantly looking over their shoulders to find out, do we have Narendra Modi's approval or not? Which is why slowing down of decisions in their ministries. Gadkari is a refreshing contrast.
Siddharth Vardarajan, would you agree India Today putting Narendra Modi, putting Nitin Gadkari at the top of the pack when it comes to Modi's ministers?
I think there's no doubt that he's among the best performers in a rather mediocre or underperforming bunch. But I would say that you've been rather too generous with your score of 4.5 out of 5, because there's been a lot of hype and exaggeration about the increase in road building. If you actually compare the data, and we ran a story in The Wire a couple of days ago, actually, in the context of Arvind Panagariya's a piece saying that the Modi government has hugely boosted infrastructure. The data is that under Mr. Gadkari, 14.3 kilometers a day are being built. In the UPA, the last 2 years, it was 13.7. So it's an improvement, but an improvement of about half a kilometer a day, which is a far cry from the public perception that there's been some massive expansion in road building. So I think that, yes, he deserves to be at the top of the pile, but probably your overall score is a bit of an exaggeration.
Okay, let Chandan Mitra come in on this, because this is something that T.N. Nainan wrote about earlier as well, that the claims of performance are far more significant than actual performance, that there's a lot of talk, but that's not necessarily met with reality, that the number of roads being constructed or the amount of roads being constructed every day is just slightly more than earlier. It's not as if it's jumped up to 30 kilometers. So perception we're seeing Siddharth Varadarajan argue is better than reality.
Yeah.
Let Chandan respond.
Well, you know, this is my favorite subject because I travel a lot and travel in a car driving myself. And I recently went on a complete circumambulation of India and traveled down the national highways from north to south and back to Delhi. I must tell you, and I have done this before, that there's been a sea change. The roads are good, and where there are new infrastructures are needed, they are coming up. They're coming up at a rapid pace. But in Mr. Gadkari's favor, I would like to also point out that a visionary scheme of national waterways, and on this work has started. It is an old British time project, but now the dredging work has begun in Allahabad, the Allahabad to Haldia, and similar 6 projects have started, and I think this is going to completely transform the trade and communication in India's interiors, open up routes to the northeast through Bangladesh. The rivers will be desilted, jetties are going to be built. Yes, it will take time, but I think this is a visionary program which needed to be done. Mr. Gadkari has undertaken it and work has already begun.
Okay.
I would say he has done a great job so far.
From Nitin Gadkari, we now come to Piyush Goyal, again from Maharashtra, again getting 4.5 out of 5 in the India Today's editorial board's rankings. Power deficit under him has come down from 4.2 to 2.1%. There are quick, transparent auctions taking place. Coal import is reduced. 24,000 crore rupees in forex have been saved, and therefore India Today believes he comes in at 4.5, the same ranking as Nitin Gadkari. These two people, Raj Chingappa, have often been spoken of in industry and on the street as being the star performers. The problem is they don't like the tag. They say the moment you make it seem as if we're doing a lot of work, the unsaid thing is that the others aren't doing any work at all. So they don't like the tag of being star performers publicly, even though they'd love it privately.
But, you know, you have to admit that Piyush Goyal has taken, for instance, look at the way he's revolutionized LED usage in all our homes. It's one of the largest schemes in the world. And he's tech savvy. You ask him at any point, what is the current amount of LED bulbs? He's got it on his computer, on his mobile, and he'll read it off that. I mean, this is an example of how a ministry should be run. And I think that's why he's young, he's energetic, he's all there. And if you look at the statistics as what he's done, the transparency that he's brought about in this ministry, he's handled the entire whole thing very well. We'd give him full marks. I mean, we've dropped it a little bit. He's still got a couple of more things to do.
Rajdeep, but if you speak to somebody in the Congress, they'd say it's Jyotiraditya Scindia, who as Power Minister in the last years of the UPA, actually began the process which is now yielding results. And they say that Piyush Goyal is basking of reflected glory.
I think that's again only partly true. I think Piyush Goyal and Nitin Gadkari have to be seen as doers. With Piyush Goyal and Nitin Gadkari also, the marketing is very good. I mean, both of them are out there selling their statistics constantly. Piyush Goyal is someone who came first in a banking exam, in a tough banking exam many years ago. He knows how to market himself. Having said that, he has done a good job. Let's not deny it. Whether part of it was the legacy of the UPA is an argument you could make all the time. The problem is that the reality on the ground also is in a sector like power, you also need the state distribution boards to get their act together. That hasn't happened. So for all your arguments about power generation, about LED revolution, the fact is distribution is still a crisis. Most of the Vidyut boards in this country, state Vidyut boards, are in deep financial crisis. And I don't think Mr. Piyush Goyal today has any immediate quick fix solution. So I think, let's be clear, a lot of these projects in infrastructure are going to take time to fructify. So they can bask in their glory today, but come tomorrow, they may well find that the statistics don't match the reality on the ground.
But Siddharth, the reality also is that under the UPA, we had the coal scam, 1.86 lakh crore rupees. Now, all auctions are transparent. From being in a deficit, we're now going into a surplus situation. By 2019, Piyush Goyal is confident that India will not have a power problem at all. Those are significant achievements, and surely some of them go to the minister's credit.
No, undoubtedly. I think that the power sector is a sector which has definitely had an upturn. Again, I would add a caveat, though, that some of the claims don't mirror what's happening on the ground. Right? The rural electrification claims in Uttar Pradesh, for example, where you had Samarth Bansal writing in the Hindu about how 7,000 villages which were claimed to be electrified were actually not. So there are problems, and there's plenty of legacy issues too. The entire crisis with coal-fired and gas-fired stations, thanks to the way in which these projects were structured, the ultra mega power plants in the past under the UPA. So there is a legacy issue, but I would agree with Raj that the transparency that Piyush has introduced, the app, for example, the Power Ministry's app, these are very nice, sensible innovations that kind of bring the consumer, the average citizen who is the consumer of power, a bit closer to what the government is trying to do. So I think in that sense it's positive, but there are major legacy issues, major structural issues which unfortunately one person, no matter how efficient he is, cannot simply wish away.
Chandan, the reality also is that even at this time, hydro projects worth 4,341 megawatts are stuck. 50% of the total gas-based power projects in the country are still stuck. So while there have been certain achievements, the problems still remain huge.
Well, hydro, there's no water in the country right now, you know very well. All our reservoirs are bone dry, and till the monsoons arrive, we don't know how much the rivers can revive in a short while. Gas, yes, but the gas, there are enormous problems of locating and then extracting gas, the pricing and so on. But I think on the whole it has been managed very well. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. The power shortages are almost a thing of the past. Industry may still kind of cry a bit here and there, but I think things are moving absolutely in the right direction. And if all villages in the country are electrified by 2018, as Piyush Goyal has promised, I think it will be a huge achievement, a huge benchmark, and something the Modi government and BJP will be able to talk about for years to come.
I now come to the minister coming in at number 3, the 62-year-old Railways Minister Suresh Prabhu, who thinks of himself as a technocrat. Amongst his highs are the fact that decision-making now is much faster in the railways than earlier. Several innovative finance schemes have been introduced which reduce dependence on freight. There are better hygiene standards. But Raj Chingappa, the question is, if you travel in a railways, whether it's the speed at which your train travels, whether it's the general level of cleanliness, whether it's the food that's being served, things haven't dramatically improved. And yet, India Today believes that Suresh Prabhu is one of the top ministers of the Modi government.
Well, agreed, Rahul. I mean, railways is, there is plenty of malice in the railways. But I think what Suresh Prabhu has done in the first year, he was like what Rajdeep used earlier, a CEO. He had his plans very well laid out. And in the second, he's gone about it with a kind of a business-like approach. And if you look at his ministry, we use the word transparency for Piyush, you could say that of him. Transfers, postings, this was the holy grail for the railways department. He's cut that out completely. So you've seen, in terms of corruption, apparently it's much, much less. The second thing I think he's done is in terms of the industrial corridors, he's speeded up a lot of that, he's cut out red tape. It's still a long way to go, but we'll give him marks for handling a tough ministry.
Marks for handling a tough ministry, or would you rather see actual tangibles when it comes to takeaways from a passenger's point of view? Not much has changed in the railways, right?
Rahul, I think you've got to contrast him with what came before him. Between Lalu, Mamta and a Pawan Bansal, the fact was the railways was completely politicized and many would say destroyed. Therefore, Suresh Prabhu has faced a very difficult legacy, much as Piyush Goyal faced in the context of the manner in which coal auctions were being, the coal scam took place in the previous government. Compared to that, Suresh Prabhu is a standout. And I think the thing that unites all the three individuals you've spoken about so far, Gadkari, Piyush Goyal and Suresh Prabhu, is they understand business. He was the youngest director of a bank, managing director of Saraswat Bank. But more than that, they are men in a hurry. They are constantly at it. They are, this is a government where you have some horses who are running at a terrific pace and others who are typical Indian politicians who believe that we've got 5 years. Suresh Prabhu, Nitin Gadkari, Piyush Goyal at least have to their credit that they are constantly at trying to improve systems. It's not easy. There's still a financial mess in the railways, and it's going to take a long time to get the railways back on track. But I think you've got to give Suresh Prabhu credit. Compared to what was happening in the past, he hasn't resorted to the mindless populism of the previous ministers.
Okay, I need to move very quickly so that we can cover all the ministers that we have in the Modi cabinet. I now come to Arun Jaitley. India Today is calling him one of the Panchatantras of the Modi government, giving him 4 out of 5, the Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs. To his credit, India Today believes sticking to fiscal discipline, pushing through legislations like the bankruptcy, mining and insurance bills. The lows are that detractor Subramaniam Swamy has been inducted into the Rajya Sabha, slow in taking action on NPAs of public sector banks. Now, Raj, the fact that Subramaniam Swamy is in the Rajya Sabha, how does that fall as a low for poor Mr. Arun Jaitley?
Well, I think that Prime Minister Modi can answer. But let's look at the, seriously, let's look at the economy. This is an economy that is growing for all apparent purposes at 7.6%. It's kept inflation low. There are tough questions about NPA and banks. That's legacy issues. And if you look at the overall investment climate, that again, you have to look internationally as well. It's pretty tepid, the growth rates. As compared to that, India is looking very good. They're able to, I think in some senses, as you'd mentioned, the fiscal prudence, despite putting a large amount of money into infrastructure, also into the farm sector. He made one of the largest investments in the farm sector during this budget. He has still kept it within the manageable levels, and that I think he needs to be applauded for. The other point is he's also done, he's a multitasker. So he's also led the government's charge in the various houses. He's articulated what the government plans are. He's able to do both pretty well. That's why we've put him right up there.
Okay, Siddharth Bardarajan believes that Arun Jaitley's ratings are hugely inflated. Why do you have a problem with the rating that India Today has given, Siddharth?
Look, you have to look at the state of the economy, look at sluggish growth, look at employment, which is a disaster. And, we shouldn't be kind of overly influenced by numbers that appear to be very impressive. Raj mentioned the increase in the expenditure for agriculture, but once you correct that for the fact that a large chunk of that was simply readjusting the interest subvention for agriculture, moving it from one from one department to the other, the actual increase in agriculture is hardly much to tom-tom about. And then you look at the inadequate allocations for Narendra, various other heads of expenditure. I don't think Mr. Jaitley is pushing enough public investment into the economy, and given the fact that growth is an issue, employment generation is an issue, not to speak of the banking crisis, I think we have problems that we are not confronting, quite frankly.
Okay, let Chandan Mitra respond to that. The banking sector is in deep crisis. There are several international reports coming out about how acute the loan crisis in India really is, and the fact that whatever growth is happening is jobless. There aren't those many jobs being created. We have a very real demographic problem on our hands, which so far the Finance Minister, Mr. Mitra, hasn't been able to address. How do you respond?
No, I don't agree at all. You see, he is battling this legacy of these wasteful socialist years. The socialist years and the kind of freebies that were doled out during successive Congress and other non-BJP regimes in Manrega and other schemes like that. Now, these have to be first rolled back. That money which is government is investing, and he continues, Mr. Jaitley continues to invest, but they must be invested in building sort of long-term durable projects, and that is the emphasis of the government, which he has initiated. This banks, NPAs, again a legacy of the past, when banks were treated as the Munim Ji and just chits written from concerned ministries to give X crony capitalist so much money and Y capitalist something else. Now this has to be reversed, and proper professional norms have to be brought in. Mr. Jaitley is battling all this. I'm sure he'll succeed, but this is going to take some time, and a few knocks may happen, but this will succeed. And as you mentioned, all the legislation that has happened, unfortunately and cussedly, the Congress has stopped GST. If that had gone through, I think things would have really moved very fast.
Would you agree that the few things Jaitley hasn't been able to achieve is also because the opposition hasn't been supportive? If it had been, then the record would have been much better than it actually is.
Look, on that issue, I think Mr. Jaitley will only have to then go back to the statements that he made. in Parliament itself, when he was the opposition leader in the Rajya Sabha, and would effectively say that blocking Parliament was a legitimate tactic of any opposition. That's exactly what the Congress has done. Legislative gridlock is a problem that this government has faced. I think with Arun Jaitley, there are two ways to look at it, Rahul. Either you can say that Arun Jaitley, within the constraints, has done a fine job in achieving an element of macroeconomic stability, or you can say that Arun Jaitley is a classic case of a missed opportunity because he hasn't been adventurous enough, despite the fact that he has had what Swaminathan Iyer put as Achhe Sitare. The fact that oil prices were at an all-time low and have remained so for a long time, he could have used that bandwidth to be a little bit more risk-taking. And I think if you meet financial experts in Mumbai, they say, why does the finance minister also have to be the I&B minister? Why does he should be 24/7 finance. The other view, of course, is that Mr. Jaitley, like the other ministers, was burdened in a sense with troubling statistics, both globally and domestically, when he came into, and has done a reasonable job.
Okay.
He's been a good defensive batsman. I'm waiting to see him actually play the kind of shots that he likes to see, a good cover drive, a good lofted shot. He hasn't done it.
You speak to him ever about cricket? He loves cricket. He says, I like test cricket, not so much T20.
I sometimes think he likes cricket more than finance.
Let's now come to the performers. So we're moving out of the Panchtantra. We're taking you through now the performers. We're now taking you through the Spectrum star, Ravi Shankar Prasad. India Today has given him 3.5 out of 5. The Minister for Communication and Information Technology. To his credit, a record 1.1 lakh crore rupees collected from the Spectrum auction last year. BSNL, which was earlier hugely in loss, now a profit-making enterprise. When the negatives are concerned, the National Fibre Network, which is a vital part of Digital India, is delayed and is unlikely to meet the December 2016 deadline. After Ravi Shankar Prasad, I come to Mrs. Congeniality, Sushma Swaraj, coming in at 3 out of 5 as far as India Today is concerned. She's managed to carve a space in the foreign ministry despite the Prime Minister's very strong hold over every aspect of foreign policy. As far as lows are concerned, revelations last June that she helped disgraced cricket administrator Lalit Modi get travel documents. One of the other performers is firefighter Manohar Parrikar, our Raksha Mantri. He again has got 3 out of 5, the Minister of Defence. As far as the highs are concerned, bringing down the price of 36 Rafale jets from 11.6 billion euros to 7.8 billion euros. As far as the lows are concerned, delays in the release of complete defence procurement procedure for 2016, vital for purchase of new arms. And as India Today says in its write-up, if there was a prize for good intentions, Defence Minister Parrikar would win it hands down. But the reality, Mr. Chingappa, is good intentions don't necessarily lead to a good government. Parrikar hasn't been able to get things done as far as defence purchases are concerned, and that's a problem. There's great intentions, but what about the delivery?
Well, you know, with defence purchases has always been tricky with every government. And now increasingly with Augusta Westland, you're going to get a blowback. So, you know, it's understandable that this government is going to be very cautious and not be, hurled with accusations from the opposition on this. But the other factor I think you must give him credit for, we haven't put him in the Panchratna category for the other reasons that, what you had mentioned. You still have a lot, he still has a long way to go. But during his tenure, he's also sorted out this one rank, one pension, a very vexatious issue, difficult to sort out. So let's give him credit there as well.
Okay, Siddharth Vardarajan, India Today giving Sushma Swaraj 3 out of 5. They're also saying that the Prime Minister has a huge hold over foreign policy, and therefore, whatever may have happened, whether it's China, whether it's Nepal, whether it's Pakistan, you can't credit her or blame her because a lot of the decisions are actually being taken outside the foreign ministry in the Prime Minister's office.
Yeah, I think if ever there were a case for talent being wasted and not being utilized, it's the case, Sushma Swaraj at the MEA, one of the most senior, capable ministers. If I'm not mistaken, either in your poll or some other channel's poll last year, Sushma Swaraj was the top performing minister. And the fact that she is now somewhere in the middle, even if you've given her a passing score of 3, reflects the fact that all the initiatives are being handled by the Prime Minister. You never hear anything from the EAM. This is unique, perhaps, in the last 60 years, that you have a foreign minister who is not even empowered to give interviews or to articulate Indian foreign policy. So if at all, there is the score is less than what Indian foreign policy accomplishments in the last 2 years suggest, I think the Prime Minister needs to ask why is he wasting or why is he not utilizing talent that he has before him?
No. So Rajdeep, is Siddharth being unfair when he says she's not empowered to do press conference? Because as you well know, it's a decision she says she's taken herself. No one's told her. Modi's not told her don't do press conferences. She says, my work will do the talking. I don't need to.
My work will do the talking for someone who for most of her political career was one of the most communicative politicians that India has seen. I mean, it seems strange. I think Siddharth has a point. I think she's become a tragic figure in a way. Here is someone, one of the most talented communicators that Indian politics has thrown up in the last 20 years, who simply doesn't communicate. In a government, with a Prime Minister who is in favor of constant communication.
She's active on social media.
She may be active on social media, but you would like to see a foreign minister who communicates more. More than that, let's look at the specifics. What's happening in the neighborhood? Look at Nepal. Look at Pakistan. Look at now even with Myanmar. Look at Sri Lanka. The fact is, except for Bangladesh, in the subcontinent at the moment, India's foreign policy is under serious question. Now, who is to blame? Is it MEA and the foreign minister, or the PMO, which seems to be handling foreign policy by proxy? So I think Sushma Swaraj will never get credit when credit is deserved, and she has done, she's worked very well on the human angle of external affairs diplomacy when it's come to Yemen and other parts of the world. But when it comes to actual strategic policy decisions, she's kept out of the loop. So how are you ever going to give her 4 on 5? It's a tragic situation. And you ask me, is she deliberately not, choosing not to communicate? Maybe so, because she fears that when she does an interview, the first question will be asked, what are your relations with Narendra Modi like? And I don't know whether she can give an honest answer at the end of the day.
Yeah, but she's a diplomat now. She can find a way of answering that question as well. We've spoken about the Pancharatna, we've spoken about the performers, but there's also a whole bunch of laggards. Who does India today believe are the worst performing ministers of the Modi government? This is what we'll get you when we come back on the other side of a very quick break. There will be some heartburn, make no mistake about it, but like we've looked and acknowledged the role of the performers, we must also look at who India today believes are the ministers who've simply failed to pull their weight. That and more. The performance of the Modi government over the past 2 years. India Today's editorial board has ranked the top performers. We've taken you through that list. We're now looking at the stragglers, the ministers who have failed to pull their weight. Right at the bottom of the pack, according to India Today magazine, is Mahesh Sharma, the Minister for Culture and Tourism. And the reason that India Today believes Mahesh Sharma has been amongst the worst performing ministers of the Modi government is that there's been transfer and sacking of several heads of institutions under his ministry. Tourist safety is still a concern. There's been no policy statement by the Culture and Tourism Minister. The civil aviation policy is also long overdue. Now, Rachingappa, while India Today may think that Mahesh Sharma is the worst performing minister, if you speak to anybody in the RSS or the extended Sangh Parivar, they'll say, he's our man, he's actually done a better job than most other ministers. They're delighted with what he's been doing over the last 2 years.
But it's pretty divisive, as you can see. And let's also look at the other sector, tourism. I mean, that whatever ranking that we've sort of moved up with, it isn't because the ministry has done extraordinary work. There's so much that could have been done. And we felt that in these last 2 years, we're not getting that kind of ballast that tourism should deserve. It's a very, very key ministry. And in culture, it's pretty obvious what's happened. He's made these injudicious statements. He's transferred all these heads. He's, opened himself to a lot of accusations. And it's not really what the Modi ministry should be looking at. I mean, there's been diversions as a result. The focus of this ministry should be development. Instead, it's gone off to other areas. I think partly
the world outside, Rajdeep, believes that the focus should be development. The RSS very strongly believes that over 60 years, a Nehruvian idea has seeped into India, and they believe Mahesh Sharma is the man changing that. They'd be very upset with the half star that Rachingappa and his team have given.
But this is not supposed to be an RSS government. This is India voted for a BJP government headed by Narendra Modi. But yes, culture is seen as a critical area by the RSS because the RSS believes in its notions of cultural nationalism. And you're bang on that therefore they will see Mahesh Sharma as their man in the ministry. But look at the way he handled the Nehru Memorial controversy, sacking someone like Dr. Mahesh Rangarajan, a distinguished academic. And now you don't even have anyone to replace him at the moment. And you are putting mediocrity after mediocrity in institutions, which is the bigger problem with this government at times, that you you put them in these places because of their proximity to certain individuals in the Sangh, not because of their ability. We are in the 21st century. Is this about renaming roads? Whether you want to rename a road after Aurangzeb, after Abdul Kalam, is that why Mahesh Sharma is put in a ministry? Or is it because you have to provide a cultural tourism policy that fits in with India in 2016?
Let Chandan Mitra respond. The aviation policy is long overdue. The culture policy hasn't come out yet, neither has the tourism ministry come out with a vision statement. Mahesh Sharma has been busy all this while pushing the RSS's agenda, leading to very serious questions about why he's doing what he's doing instead of focusing on what he really ought to be doing.
No, I don't agree at all. I think Mr. Mahesh Sharma has done a good job. He is taken people along. He naturally, some people who are legatees of the Nehru Gandhi era and have kind of developed deep roots and vested interests in various organizations need to be eradicated, and
Chandan,
that of course has to be done.
Sorry to intervene, Chandan.
Rightly done.
As a historian, you've been a student of history. Are you telling me that Mahesh Rangarajan is the wrong person to have headed Nehru Memorial? That he's a legacy of the Nehru Gandhi family or of the Congress party? I mean, someone like you surely will not make a statement like this, Chandan, for God's sake.
Rajdeep, I don't want to say anything about Mahesh Rangarajan. I know him. I know he's a good historian. No two issues there. But my comment is general, that across the board in various institutions, some of the Nehru Gandhi legatees, the fellow travelers of the Pink Panthers have been had it very good for 60-70 years. And
no, but also as Rajdeep raises the question about the quality and the caliber of the people who are being brought in as replacements. If you take, say, a Mahesh Rangarajan away, you must bring in somebody with an equal intellectual standing, and that's been a big failure.
Pro-Nehru Gandhi and pro-communist doesn't make somebody qualitatively superior to
okay,
others.
This is a matter of a whole different debate. If we get stuck here, we won't move beyond Mahesh Sharma. So what I'll do instead is move on to our next minister. Again at the bottom of the pack, coming in with just a 1-star ranking is a poor sports minister, Sarabanda Sonowal. And the reason why India Today isn't impressed with what he's done is that the much-hyped Khelo India program to identify and support new talent is a merger of 3 earlier schemes. He's failed to initiate any step to rid sports of slow and messy bureaucratic procedure or loosen the grip of politicians. Remember, Ajay Makan was trying to push that through. Chandan Mitra, so far, we haven't seen Sarabanda Sonowal want to do anything about it.
Now you must remember, Rahul, that Sarbananda Sonowal is currently kind of leading the BJP's campaign in Assam.
Yes, just for the last 2 or 3 months, he's had almost 2 years in the post that he's been in.
Waiting in Assam. Yeah, but he was hardly allowed to settle down. And again, these federations and these sports bodies, so to speak, have so much power and clout that it is difficult for any minister to get rid of the bureaucracy and the vested interest in them.
I just want to jump in.
Given some time. I wish he had been given some time.
Sir, my point, Chandan, is that in an Olympic year, our sports minister is busy battling for the last 6 months to become the chief minister of Assam. It shows the priority that we attach to the sports ministry. I'm not saying having a good sports minister is going to get us Olympic medals. The fact is you're right, federations run the show, but it would be nice to have seen a more dynamic sports minister. Again, it is about India in 2016. These are the ministries where you would like to see dynamism. Frankly, I don't know why we need a sports ministry. What you really need is a good sports policy, and you should have fewer ministers.
Sonowal, 1 minute, sorry Rajdeep, I've heard you out. Sarbananda Sonowal is a very dynamic, determined and honest man. I think if he had some more time on his hands and had been allowed to settle down instead of being sent off to Assam,
then I think by
now you would have seen a different picture.
I want to move the wheel. I'm coming now to another half-star, Law Minister Sadanand Gowda. He's not done very well as per the India Today rankings either. In fact, they call him courting disaster. And the reason that they believe that he's failed is that Chief Justice of India, T.S. Thakur, lamented how the ministry had dragged its feet over judicial appointments. He keeps a clean desk with no paper files. Files are cleared in 15 days. But things simply haven't moved, because one of the things the Prime Minister spoke about, Siddharth Varadarajan, was that you need to make laws simpler. Somebody like a Sadanand Gowda didn't do much as chief minister in his native state and now simply seems to lack the political standing or the standing in the judiciary or in legal circles to be able to do the mandate, to be able to execute the mandate he's been given.
Look, I think here this is the classic case of a law minister who, quite frankly, is a bit out of his depth. The law ministry is quintessentially it's a political ministry, and the intersection in terms of work with other ministries with the PMO is such that the minister by himself isn't. I don't think it's fair to make him hold the can. Quite frankly, this government has drafted some bad laws. Aadhaar is a great example of where it misused the money bill. Judicial appointments have been delayed because of the NJAC misadventure and the fact that the government wants to somehow push the judiciary in a certain direction. So, this is the can that Mr. Sadanand Gowda has to carry. It's a different matter that he himself lacks dynamism or charisma, but I think the fault really lies with the outlook of the Modi government as a whole, which is looking at the law ministry and all the authority that the ministry wields as an instrumentality for its own for strengthening the executive vis-a-vis the judiciary. I think that's really the root of the problem.
Okay, let me now take our viewers through 4 other ministers who we believe are stragglers, ministers who've struggled to show anything noteworthy. Coming in with just 1 star is Health Minister J.P. Nadda. The inability to resolve the pricing of essential drugs is something that goes against him. There's no clear roadmap for universal health care. There's been a year of hitches and hiccups over price hike of essential drugs, and the medical entrance exams also remains a big problem. Then there is Bandaru Dattatreya, who apart from having messed up with the Rohith Vemula controversy, also hasn't done much when it comes to labour. He's been labouring, but just labouring on and yielding very little. The opposition wanted him sacked on charges of aiding the suicide of Hyderabad University student Rohith Vemula. He's an RSS man. He looks at every petition that comes to him. That always doesn't go down very well. After Nadda and Bandaru Dattatreya, I now want to look at Civil Aviation Minister Ashok Gajpati Raju. Ashok Gajpati Raju also has been given 1 star by India Today's editorial board. Amongst the reasons why India Today calls him a flightless bird, amongst his failures is the fact that the 520 rule still hasn't been modified. There hasn't been any dynamism in the ministry under his watch. The one person I'm most concerned about, who's got only 1.5 ratings and has come a cropper according to India Today, is our Agriculture Minister Radha Mohan Singh. He comes from a very strong Sangh background. He's been very low-key, but agriculture hasn't had much to show. Is that, Rajdeep, because he doesn't talk much, or is it because he hasn't done much?
I think it's been a tough, this is if anyone were to point out the one area in the Narendra Modi government where not enough has been done, it is agriculture, and that is important because we've had 2 consecutive droughts. At a time when this country has faced 2 consecutive droughts, if you do not have an agriculture minister who's on the top of his ministry, you're always going to struggle. You've had the same problem with Ram Vilas Paswan with civil supplies ahead of the Bihar elections, where again you had a minister who was simply not on top of the problem that was existing with price of dal. And you've had the same problem now with Radha Mohan Singh. And this is the worry with the Narendra Modi government: health, education, agriculture.
Rahul,
these are the ministries where the government doesn't seem to have done well,
Chandan
as it's done well with physical infrastructure.
Chandan wants to respond. Physical infrastructure doing well, social indices also,
I want to respond
health,
to
education not doing well. Let Chandan respond. Yes.
No, I'm not talking on health education. I just want to limited point that Rajdeep made about 2 consecutive droughts. I think these 2 consecutive droughts have knocked out the government's agriculture policy. The government had a very good agriculture policy and actually has done a lot. What the Prime Minister's new initiatives like the Pradhan Mantri Sinchai Yojana and the Fasal Bima Yojana, which guarantees and insures crops, is really a spectacular kind of change it's going to bring about in the countryside, and the plan to double farm incomes by 2022. But there is of course, the nature's bounty must be there.
In the last part of this broadcast, let's now focus on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's own personal rankings. Let me first show you the India Today cover for this week. It says, now go for gold. But what India Today has done is given Narendra Modi a silver medal. He always says he goes for gold. If he can have a diamond, he'll take that too. But India Today is giving him a silver. They're saying 2 years on, Modi has set the pace, but he could have done better. According to the India Today rankings, what goes in Prime Minister Modi's favor is that he's been able to improve India's global image. He's been able to bring a certain amount of transparency in the way government functions. There's a huge infrastructure push from his government. There's also a big rural push. Amongst the lows are the fact that he was relatively silent when it came to the Bharat Mata Ki Jai and beef controversy. He was unable to bridge the legislative gap in Parliament, and that his party under his leadership suffered massive poll setbacks in Delhi and Bihar. India Today magazine has given his personal performance 4.5. His government's performance has been ranked at 3.5 out of 5. But Raj, the reality is Modi is his government. So you're giving his government lesser marks than you're giving the man. At the end of the day, you'd actually be looking at the government's performance, the government he leads.
Well, the way we looked at it, Rahul, is that when you look at his personal performance, and there is no doubt that the energy he exudes, the work that he puts in, and on certain fronts, foreign policy which is personally directed, you might criticize and say that, you know, he didn't give Sushma Swaraj the place she should have, but he certainly excelled in an area that he was not known to when he took over as Prime Minister. The handling of the economy, whatever everyone else might say, has been is pretty good. I mean, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you have an economy that's growing at 7.6%. He's kept fiscal prudence despite pressures to remove Raghuram Rajan, the RBI governor. He stayed the course. I think the reasons why we give his government and him also not, you know, gold in that sense and put him down to silver and low rankings for the government is on two fronts. One is, of course, the political front where, though his personal popularity is very, very high, when you look at the way he's handled the opposition, the barbs that he has done with the Gandhi family, the inability to push through major legislation in Parliament, that hasn't been too well. And the other is the divisive agenda that some of his colleagues and extreme elements in the Sangh Parivar have done, which has in some senses derailed the government's development agenda and focused on issues like beef ban and others, which is really not the top priority of this government. And the feeling was that the Prime Minister Modi should have come down much harder, taken, you know, used an instance or two to bring these elements, you know, curb these elements. And so therefore, overall, if you look at it, silver is more deserving. There are things that he needs to do, and when we say now go for gold, this is the year. This is a critical year for him if he's looking for a second term to do the things he should be doing.
Rajdeep, do you agree
which is,
with the
of course,
distinction
focus on the economy, social upliftment,
between his personal performance and the performance of his government, the fact that his personal performance is rated as being far better than that of his government?
I think that would be fair, because I think this is a strange government where the parts are greater than the whole. You know, if you look at the whole government, there'd be question marks. If you look at Mr. Modi himself, there are some things where he deserves credit. There are other areas where I think he hasn't been able to deliver. He's also set expectations so high because he's constantly in campaign mode 24/7. So he's raising expectations, and when they're not met, there's an element of disillusionment that sets in just as quickly as we've seen during election results in a couple of states. So I would say that with Mr. Modi, a minister pointed it out well. You've got a charioteer who wants to move very fast, but the horses that he has are not used to moving so fast. And then if you start whipping them, some of them are either tiring, struggling, collapsing, or just not being able to move as fast. As I said, out of your 35 ministers you've rated, 24 are so-so and stragglers. That's something to be worried of. If I was Narendra Modi, I'd, after seeing this poll, go in for a cabinet reshuffle next week. There's a serious problem with your ministers. And Mr. Modi must realize that while his sycophants will say Modi is India and India is Modi, or Modi is government, government is Modi, the reality is different. He may well believe that it's a presidential style election even in 2019. He may well be right. He may well win again. But at the end of the day, governments are about building a team. And I'm not sure Mr. Modi has done what Mahendra Singh Dhoni so successfully does, which is make individuals punch above their weight. Many of these individuals should be punching way above their weight, and that's where the Prime Minister should be encouraging them, not doing what he's done with the Sushma or Rajnath, where they actually are not performing as well as they could because they have the potential.
That's very nicely put. Let Chandan Mitra respond to this. Do we have a situation where you've got the lead sprinter, the captain of the team, running much faster than the rest of the team? Because at the end of the day, it's a relay and he has to ensure his whole team does well. So you've got the captain performing much better, but it can't be a one-man show with just a few players doing well. Ultimately, the government will be judged for what it does as a whole. Chandan Mitra.
True, but the fact is that the captain has to lead from the front. The captain has to run faster than the rest of the team. You can't have the captain, you see, falling behind some members of the team, even if those members of the team are very brilliant. But I think what Mr. Modi does is to bring in an enormous amount of energy, and he drives people very hard. And he's been doing that. Now, if some have not lived up to your editor's expectations, it is actually their problem. They must now work harder to live up to those expectations.
Will he replace them? Will he replace them and go for a cabinet reshuffle, Chandan? Why have we not seen? Why have we not seen more talent being brought from outside? Why not? Why don't I see more lateral entrants? 24 of your 35 are seen as stragglers and so. That's not great. Prime Minister, lots of energy, but his other ministers are huffing and puffing.
So it is. Well, it's for the Prime Minister to take a call. I cannot comment on that. But I can only tell you that he has done whatever he could. He has transformed India's image in the world. After ending policy paralysis of 10 years, he has made it policy dynamic. It's a dynamic policy reversal that has happened. Agriculture, infrastructure, you see, defense, and in almost every other sphere, the country has got a new energy and a momentum. So
okay,
I think
let
the Prime
Siddharth
Minister
Vardarajan respond.
The question of the Prime Minister
because
doing well.
Do we have a situation where the Prime Minister is doing much better, moving much faster than the rest of his government? Is that something that gets held against him as captain of his team, Siddharth?
Rahul, there's a serious problem that Mr. Modi must face, which is that the math, the arithmetic of your poll has actually, you haven't done your sums properly. Because if you were to add up the total based on the performance of ministers, the vast majority of whom are stragglers or underperformers, you would be hard-pressed to even come with a figure of 3.5 as the average for this government. So we've given him 3.5, the government 3.5, you've given the Prime Minister 4.5. There's simply no way to reconcile 4.5, 3.5 and an average of probably around 2 or less than 2 if you were to aggregate the individual scores of ministers, right? So somewhere down the line, the dreadful truth is emerging that this government, which is close to completing halfway, right, we're coming up to halfway mark. There is no plan B. Even if he wants to have a reshuffle, where are these ministers or talented individuals that he's going to pull out of his hat? What you have is what you're getting is what you have. And the fact is that the Prime Minister individually may be a high performer, but he is there as part of a team. And if the team doesn't perform, I think it doesn't really matter how fast he runs or how good he is. This is really the Achilles heel of this government. Some would have argued that in many ways outcome was foretold by the way he ran Gujarat. But I think if I was Mr. Modi, I'd be a worried man based on this data.
I think Siddharth made the point of Gujarat at the end, and I think that's part of the problem. In Gujarat, if the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister got 4.5, you would always believe that the government was rated very highly by the people. But in India, if you get 4.5 but your ministers are getting much lower, you should be worried.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, people are looking at a government as a team. This is Team Modi. He keeps saying it's Team Modi. He wants to make it Team Modi. Well, he's got to make sure that team is working at the same level that he wants it. And he's got to realize you cannot be constantly in campaign mode. You've got to move out of campaign mode and match your promise with performance.
Ratching up 20 seconds, very quickly, final comments.
Well, two things. One, Siddharth sort of said the maths was wrong. But let's look at the key issue the country faces. It's the economy. They've kept steady on that. They've spent on infrastructure. They've kept in terms of foreign policy, he's done exceedingly well to get in foreign investment, shore up India's image. So on all the three big ones, he comes out good. It's the problems in terms of politics, and as I said earlier, with social, the divisive forces that is there, which he can, if he curbs in this year, he will do far better than what is happening now. Yes, I agree. that the Team Modi, Modi is outstanding, Team Modi still is lagging far behind. This is something every captain needs to face with and try and, as Rajiv said, punch above their weights on this.
I'll let that be the last word. This is a very, very subjective ranking, of course. Everybody has their own views. We're already hearing from some who agree, many who disagree. At the end of the day, you take your call, you make up your own mind. This is the India Today editorial board's rankings of Modi's ministers, the stars and the stragglers, and you can read more about this in this week's India Today. Rajdeep, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks also to Raj Chingappa. Thanks also to Siddharth Varadarajan and Chandan Mitra for joining us on this broadcast. Much more on the Modi ministers' rankings. Now go for gold in this week's edition of India Today magazine. News and updates continue when we come back on the other side of a quick break. Stay with us.